Hello students, let's read the problem. And it says, which numbers are placed incorrectly? Okay, so what they asking me to find is, they're asking me to find numbers that are placed incorrectly, right? So that means that we're gonna need to go and check each one of the numbers that we have in here and see if we can find one or two or three that they might be in the wrong place, right? So let's start with which one you want to start with, the whole numbers? Okay, awesome. So we'll start with whole numbers first, okay? So these are my whole numbers. So I do see a 3, that's a whole number, but then I see a 15 over 3. Well, don't be scared, that's a fraction, but actually that is a 5 because 15 divided by 3 gives me a 5. So I can cross it out and I can put a 5. So both of those two numbers are correct. Okay. What about the integers? Okay. So what is the square root of a negative 9? Well, since the negative is outside, you get to keep the negative. But then think about the square root of 9 by itself. And that would be a negative 3, right? So I'm going to cross this out and I'm going to say negative 3. So negative 3, it is an integer, right? So we're good. What about negative 4.5? Now, I know what you're thinking. That's an integer means because it has a negative number. Yes, it has a negative sign, but it's a decimal. And integers cannot have decimals. So this number, it's not in the right place. Okay? That's not in the right place. So that's one of my answers that I'm looking for, right? Okay, let's go on. What about negative 2 over 5? Well, negative 2 over 5, if you divide that, we get negative 0.4 or 0.40, right? And that is right. That is a rational number because remember, rational numbers are decimals that either terminate or repeating decimals. Okay, so that is good. What about the next one? 1.025, that's a decimal, right? So we're good. And the last one, negative 6.4. So they're all good. What about in the irrationals? So let's see if we remember what irrationals. Irrationals are those numbers that if I was to put them in the calculator, they will give me decimals that will keep on going and going and going. And you are mainly going to find square roots that are not perfect squares, okay? So these are supposed to be not perfect squares, okay? So I can see that square root of 5, let's go ahead and write it over here, right? That's an irrational number because that's not a perfect square root, okay? And if you really want to get the answer for that, okay, my answer will be an approximation, right? It's like 2.233 and so on and so forth, right? So I know that that's not a perfect square, right? And even without using a calculator, I know that's not a perfect square because there's no such a two number, or one number actually, that can be multiplied by itself that will give you a 5. Is that right? Because think about it. I can multiply 2 times 2, it's 4. And then 3 times 3, it's 9. But I'm looking for the square root of 5. So that's basically going to be an irrational number. Okay? And pi, everybody knows that pi is irrational because it keeps on going and going and going, right? Okay? And how about this one, square root of 16? Do you know what number can be the answer for that? Well, think about it. We already did 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 it's 9. What about 4 times 4? That is a 16. So that actually is supposed to be a 4 by itself. So I'm going to change this and I'm going to write down a 4. So is that in the right place? No, it's not, right? Because it's supposed to be a whole number. So that number is not in the correct place. How about the last number, negative square root of 2? Okay, so let me write it down here. Is that a perfect square? And we know that that's not a perfect square, right? Because I cannot multiply, for example, 1 times 1. Let's suppose that you want to multiply 1 times 1. We get a 1, right? And the next one will be 2 times 2, and that will give me a 4. And this number is actually between 1 and 4. So that's how I can check if these are my perfect squares or not. And therefore, negative square root of 2, it is an irrational number. Okay, so I got two answers from it. So let's see if we can find them. I need to find negative 4.5, which is right here. And I need to find the square root of 16, which is right there. Okay, so yeah, my answer should be letter B. Those are the two numbers that they were in the wrong place, right?